guys, welcome back to another episode of the Two Commoners podcast. This is actually the first time me and Hunter have gotten together in like 4 weeks. Isn't that right, Hunter?
Yeah. Been gone for the past few weeks on vacation, helping the fam move into the new house. It was a good trip, but happy to be back. Happy to be doing the podcast again. I missed a lot, and hopefully today we're gonna cover some of the stuff that has happened over the past few weeks, and have some good topics.
Yeah, so we're going to start out with what I find to be the most boring, but nevertheless most important topic, coronavirus, COVID-19.
Yep. Unfortunately, we have seen another huge jump in cases over the past few weeks, specifically in the South with Florida, Texas, Arizona, and a couple other states down there. But now, today, there are only 3 states that have really actually seen a decrease in cases. And our home state of Wisconsin is actually increasing quite a bit.
It makes me a little nervous because I always thought we were hit like some of the least hard out of like most of the states.
Yeah, we are, but yeah, we were. And we will be still because we're a very rural state, most of it. And until it eventually catches up to the rural areas, we should be fine, I think. But problem is, Arizona mainly saw the Indian tribes get hit the hardest, Navajo and Hopi Indian tribes get hit the hardest, and then it spread out inward to the main big city in Maricopa County where Phoenix is, and the surrounding suburbs there. And now that county is like the largest hotspot in the entire world right now for coronavirus. Kind of scary. Got back from there, took a coronavirus test just to be safe.
I gotcha.
Tested negative. Yep.
That's good. I gave blood the other day.
Yeah?
That was pretty interesting. Everybody wearing masks and like obviously take repercussions and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, my mom was supposed to give blood, but she had like appendicitis like
Yeah.
the night before, and because she had to undergo a procedure for that, I decided to go in her place. And I don't know, that was just an experience giving blood post coronavirus.
Not post coronavirus, but like during coronavirus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean.
Yeah, I know, got you.
Post the outbreak.
Yeah.
Post since it happened, it's just interesting.
Yeah. So yesterday we had our highest increase in daily cases at like 70,000 cases, a little more than 70,000 cases. Our highest before that was 55,000.
Ooh.
So that's quite a big increase.
I'd say so.
Yep. They're running out of hospital space in Florida. They're running out of morgue space, so they had to call in FEMA to bring in whatever those things are called, those transportation morgues. Or I forget what the name of it is. But nonetheless, we are in a tough spot as a country. Yes, we are testing a lot, and that's good, but nowhere near the numbers it should have been before this.
I mean, yeah, it's just a shame that it even got to this point.
Yeah. You lock down to flatten the curve, but not only that, you lock down to help yourself get prepared for what comes after that. And as of now, Trump's talking about opening up schools again, threatening to withhold funds if schools don't open up. And he is saying that if universities go online for the year, that foreign students here on travel visas won't be allowed to go, and they would have to go back to their countries that they came from.
It's actually an interesting point.
Which is, yeah, we can talk about that more.
I never thought about that issue.
Yeah.
I mean, what's interesting about that is it's almost like if it is online, in theory, you don't have to be here. But
Yeah. True.
also at the same time, displacing people like back to their other countries right now in the midst of like a contagious virus has problems with its own.
You'd also like to be on the same time cycle too, because like
That's true.
you're
That's true.
you're looking at due dates that are a lot different now, and
Yeah.
Zoom meetings or
You're right.
Yeah.
Zoom meetings and stuff. That's a
Yeah.
good point. I mean, I don't know.
and
I-
you don't even some of these countries too. Like right now, people holding the U.S. passport are only allowed in 24 countries. Nowhere in the EU are they allowing U.S. tourists or students for the
Yeah, like people from the U.S. aren't even allowed in Canada, right?
Yeah, the border's still closed. It was supposed to open back up like a month ago, but
Well,
that hasn't happened.
I was actually talking to somebody from Canada.
Yeah?
And they were telling me that for a while, it's not the case anymore, but for a while each Canadian province was like closed. Like if you were in one province, you couldn't visit another.
Oh.
Yeah. And apparently they have I guess I'm not brushed up on my names of the Canadian provinces, but I know some of them are like islands.
Mhm.
Apparently the like group of islands is like still closed to the
Mainland?
provinces. Yeah,
Yeah.
the mainland and the provinces outside of that. So that was
Wow.
interesting to me because apparently this individual from Canada I was talking to, she had got into an argument from somebody from America who was talking about how like America's different and each state operates under like its own government and you can't like close down stuff like that, but they seem to neglect the fact that Canada's provinces, even though there might be less of them with less overall population, they still very much operate a lot like states.
Yeah.
And they still like manage to close them down. So, and she was actually kind of surprised that America hadn't closed down states the way that like Canada did. But I mean, the interesting thing about that is if we talked about closing down travel from state to state.
How would you do that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I said that at first, but then I thought about it and I'm like, I wonder how Canada did it, because it can't be much different.
True.
Like, I doubt there's borders.
You set up like entry points, like
Yeah.
at the designated border.
Yeah, I guess
Check
you'd have to do
IDs.
something like that, yeah.
What if you work over there, and your job is still? Because I know like a lot of people around here, like
That's a good point,
Yeah.
yeah, because we live right on the border between us and Wisconsin and Minnesota.
what a lot of states are doing too is like Massachusetts, for example. All the states that have major hotspots like Arizona, Texas, and Florida, they're having mandatory 14-day quarantines for those people that are traveling back or are actually from there.
Yeah. Well, and I just want to point out that I'm not saying I was necessarily in favor of closing down state
Yeah.
travel, but I just find it interesting that you talk to most people in the United States, and like a lot of people would find that pretty like unimaginable.
Yeah.
But for like the rest of the world, doing shutdowns like that is more on the table, and it's just interesting to see how
Yeah.
our view of America, I mean, you could chalk it up to American exceptionalism, but I think it goes beyond that. Our view of American culture really does define the lines of what we think we can and can't do.
Yeah. I wonder what some of those EU countries did, like Germany. I wonder if they,
I think a lot of them did close borders from country to country. in
or
Europe.
like further states too. I'm saying.
Is there like states in Germany?
Yeah, Germany has like
I don't know enough.
I
about
forgot what they're
Germany,
called.
it
They're
seems.
called lawns or something.
Lawns?
La-
Get off my lawn.
No, it's land, but it's not land. I don't know how to say it. I'm not German. Anyway,
Deutschlands?
No. No.
That was a joke.
it's not it. Anyway, yeah. We're seeing an increase in testing, but with that, you hear a lot of media sources, specifically on the right, say like, because we have an increase in testing, that's why we have such a dramatic increase in cases. Well, yes and no, because
There
now
we
the
go.
testing has stagnated and remained stagnant for a while now.
Yeah.
We've also seen a large increase in our positivity rate of those tests.
Testes.
Testes. That could have been bad.
Testes?
Testes. My
Okay,
bad.
increased
Oh.
positivity rate. Gotcha.
Yeah. So that kind of just throws away that.
I mean, isn't the death rate of COVID kind of like stagnating a little bit, even though the infection rate is going up? Isn't that kind of what
The
a lot of
death
people
rate
are
is
saying?
now slightly increasing, and it will increase.
I mean, no doubt a little bit, but hasn't hasn't the overall rate, it's like not going at the same rate as it did like originally, right? Yet we're having infection rates go up a lot higher than they did originally, which
Mm-hmm.
just means that as we're testing more, there's a lot of people who probably had it for a while who are
Yeah.
haven't experienced lethal effects from it.
Yeah. Well, let's see here. I wish I could pull the graph. Anyway. No, deaths are definitely gonna go up, mainly because of...
Well, the
yeah.
deaths are death rate. Of course, deaths are gonna
No,
go up.
well, the death rate is gonna go up with it.
I mean, deaths can go up and the death rate can be stagnant and be like a plateau.
The death rate has seen a slight increase. Whether it's sustained or whether it's sustained, we'll see in a few weeks.
Yeah.
But there has been a little up. I'm trying to find the graph, but a little
Uptick?
uptick in the number of deaths and the death rate.
Okay.
Yeah, like
I mean,
I know, like those southern states, the Houston area in Texas ran out of hospital room. The Maricopa County and D'Abruzzo health system
yeah.
has run out of space. So that's only a matter of time before I think we do see a large increase.
So here's an interesting thing to think about. Obviously, it's getting closer and closer to November.
Yep.
This is like 2020 has been a pretty intense year for the world and obviously America.
Mhm.
And how we like handle how the government handles things, like matters more now than it has like most years. Like,
Yeah.
the government's influence has a lot more like attached to it because like lives are at stake and there's like a virus, etc., etc., and also like obviously the economy is also at stake at the same time, and a lot of things that are helpful for the virus might hurt the economy, so we have to play like a weird game of juggling to make sure that everything is like fine.
Yeah.
So the question is like, let's say our current administration doesn't win, and then Biden's administration takes power come November, which isn't that long away.
Mhm.
We're gonna be there pretty quickly. Do you think there's any policy changes in handling the virus that we would see like immediately from Biden's administration?
I think one of the main things he's been preaching for the past few months is contact tracing. I think he's going to set up a very good I think he has the tools, if he wants to, spend the money to set up a contact tracing program to help the country finally get a hold of the pandemic.
Okay.
Especially before flu season.
So
or
how does
during
how does contact tracing work?
Well, for each known confirmed case, that person has come in contact with said number of individuals.
Weren't we doing this early on?
We were doing it early on, and then we stopped. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I guess my only question is, how do you resume doing this so late in the game?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like part of the reason we stopped was because we didn't realize that at first that the virus could remain dormant for like 2 weeks before symptoms started showing, meaning that our contact tracing was largely ineffective because we were neglecting that 2 critical weeks in which they like were off the radar as being somebody who can spread things. So how would you basically do contact tracing resuming after we've already like lost track of it and so many cases have gone like not traced, and there's still that issue of it remaining dormant for 2 weeks where it doesn't even really like work on that. So
it becomes a lot more challenging, especially at the...
But is it effective really at all? Like, it's just what I'm wondering, because that 2 weeks where you can't even contact trace seems to be the most critical and the most important thing, because there's absolutely no like precautions being taken by that individual in that time, unless they're wearing a mask.
Yep.
But yeah, you get the point I'm trying to make, though.
I mean, it's easy. I'm going to compare it to like sexually transmitted diseases for just a second, even though it's not a very good comparison.
Yeah, that's a little easier to track because you know when you're having sex. You don't exactly know when you're in contact with somebody who spread a virus.
But I feel like even if you just take those steps and you have the testing capabilities necessary to, I don't know, say you say you have a good memory of what you did over the last 2 weeks when you're finally starting to have symptoms, you test positive. Say the only problem is, like, say you were at a bar or something, or a restaurant or a club or something, something where just a petri dish for coronavirus.
Petri dish, I like that.
Yeah, but that situation comes a lot tougher. But if you're in smaller groups where you know who you're coming into contact with, then I think it can be easier. But at the rate, like you said, at the rate it's increasing the number of cases we have already, it becomes a lot more challenging. But, I mean, I think there's technology that we can take advantage of to maybe help us.
I mean, yeah, and I'm not saying that no effort should be made to try to contact trace. Like, I feel like even now, even if it's not that extensive, I feel like doctors are still asking people if they came in contact with anybody.
Yeah.
If they test positive. Like, I imagine there's still, like, an effort. I just find it hard to believe that any administration, for that matter, could implement a tactic that dramatically changes the, like, effectiveness of contact tracing, because it seems like all you can really do is ask the person, takes their word for it.
Yeah.
And you already, like, can't quarantine them until they've been doing 2 weeks of spreading the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
So, I don't know. It seems to me that, like, I guess I'm just saying I don't think that precaution will drastically change things. I've heard that Biden's administration might do federal mask mandates.
Yep.
But he's flip-flopped on this issue multiple times. Pretty sure last time they asked him, he literally flip-flopped like like twice in the same sentence. They like asked him if he'd do it, and he'd be like, "Well, I'd encourage it, but I can't do a federal mandate." And the reporter's like, "Well, you could do a federal mandate. Would you do that?" And Joe Biden's like, "Yes, I would do that." Like, immediately just switches his thing on it. So I believe last time he's asked about it in that interaction, he landed on, "Yes, I'm going to do it." But, I mean, there's reason to suspect, obviously, from that interaction that maybe he'll flip-flop that again. I don't know, but he said he might do it. It seems like a lot of his base wants him to do it. But I think he's worried a little bit more of, I guess you could say, the old-fashioned blue-collar people wouldn't necessarily like that, and he kind of wants to steal some of those votes from Trump, obviously.
Yeah. Some of those red states, I don't think, it would be hard to enforce.
I mean, yeah, it definitely would be. That's
You'd
why
have to get every governor on board, and whether that happens or not, I don't know.
I mean, even if you got every governor on board, it's not like you can just be enforcing this everywhere. Like, and especially in rural areas, this isn't going to be, like...
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of people, like, my dad, for instance, would not be happy if they made you wear a mask, like, outside in your own yard. Which is, I think, people are worried that that's going to be a thing. Like, in California already, if you're outside, you got to wear a mask no matter where you are.
Yep.
That being said, if you're rich and you live in a gated community, you can probably get away with not wearing a mask in your own yard. But if you're anything less than that, which a lot of people are, obviously, then that rule kind of applies to you fully. And I mean, it's not really that big of a deal, but I definitely understand the wearing the mask in indoor areas. But, like, mandating wearing masks outside in urban areas is one thing, but in rural areas, I think a lot of people feel like a line's being crossed if that law gets implemented.
Yeah, also, you gotta make sure everyone has access to a mask. Right now we have a lot of, like, manufacturers kind of taking advantage of this.
Yeah.
Italy, for example.
I mean, you could just wear, like, a bandana or something.
Yeah,
that's what I did when I went to the library.
If you have a bandana.
I mean, I find it hard to believe that nobody has some sort of... Like, obviously, some people are going to have better, like, protective equipment than others. But, like, hell, if I needed to, I could just, like, tie a pillowcase over my head. Like,
yeah. I know. Well, what I was going to say, we got to have, like, a 99-cent mask rule. Because right now some are being sold for, like, $3 or $4, which I know may not seem like a lot to some people, where it is a lot to others.
I agree. That is, like, an awfully, like, I probably wouldn't pay that much for a mask.
You're going to need more than one, too.
Yeah. I mean, I have a few. My mom made a bunch of them, so I
Yeah.
have a few of them.
Yeah.
I find it weird that like record companies and like bands that sell like merchandise and T-shirts and stuff, they're selling masks with their logo on it now. That's like becoming a very common thing.
Yeah.
And most of them are like $10.
$10.
And shit.
Yeah. They're crazy insane.
Well, but then again, they've always been selling T-shirts for like $25. They
Yeah.
definitely aren't worth that much because it has a band logo on it.
Yeah.
So like if you're buying a mask with a band logo on it, you're probably not buying it out of desperation for a mask. You're probably like have money to throw around and you want a cool mask and
Yeah.
I mean whatever at that point I guess, but I just think it's weird that they're capitalizing off people who have extra money at this time and want to personalize their masks. I just think it's weird that there's even a market for that.
It is.
I don't know. I just enjoy the bandana and Tifa super soldier look.
Yeah.
I think
Good
it's
look.
fun, dude. I think it's fun to wear a bandana in
Yeah.
public. You feel like a complete G.
When we were on vacation, we went to the
And then you can put it around your neck, dude.
Great Sand Dunes National Park.
Yeah.
Ginormous sand dunes. We went sandboarding and like sand sledding.
Uh-huh.
And we wanted to get bandanas instead of just our regular face masks because those would look sick, man.
They really do. And what's crazy is like, imagine wearing like a bandana like into places and out in public like a year ago.
Yeah.
People think you're like gonna rob the place, but now
Yeah.
you can like wear the like freaking apocalypse gear
Yeah,
and you
true.
look like at home. It's kind of weird. I kind of like it,
True.
even though I don't like the reasons why I have to do it. But it's just cool that you can do it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also weird that like people wearing masks in banks now. Imagine like wearing a mask in a bank like a year ago. You would immediately like be asked to take your mask off or leave.
Yep. Yeah. It's weird how society has changed the past.
It changed
6
so
months.
quickly. Like holy crap, man. Holy crap.
Man, it's never going away.
You think so?
It's never going away.
I mean, oh my god, man. I feel like my ability to like bar hop and hang out at bars was completely stolen from me. I turned 21 and then
Yeah.
pandemic.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I hope it goes away, but you're probably right. I mean, even people who are really invested in this thing,
Even if you get a vaccine, it's not
if
going to go
you
away.
get a vaccine, I bet things will change pretty drastically fairly quick. I doubt it
Not
will.
for herd immunity, I don't know though.
I doubt it will completely go back to normal.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure things from this will have a lasting impact. Like, and anybody saying otherwise is like, obviously kind of has their head in the sand. But if we have a vaccine, I think things will go. Within a period of a few months, things would go a lot closer back to normal than we can perceive now.
I want to bring in a new topic quick because
You can go ahead.
I was actually just talking this with my mom, who's a teacher. You have mandatory. Well, I shouldn't say mandatory because some people hop out mandatory vaccinations for schools.
Yeah.
Do you think it would be at all possible to?
Make this a mandatory vaccine.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about have I ever talked about like my views on like healthcare on this podcast? Because I know that like obviously in a lot of ways I do like kind of like free market capitalism, but I do think when it comes to healthcare,
Yeah.
rules have to be changed in order to ensure that everybody is like getting the correct amount of care. And I've always been one of those people who, instead of thinking we got to do something like Europe where everything is like paid for by everybody with taxes, I think that we should like price ceiling things so people are still paying for the care they need, but it's not so impossible. You get what I mean?
Mhm.
You can like I think it's achievable because Japan has done it and Taiwan has done it.
I think a basic minimum is good enough for the government, and then that price ceiling.
Yeah, well, it'd be negotiations between
Yeah.
private firms
Yeah.
and the government, and these negotiations would happen like every few years.
Mhm.
And I think that a good place to start this, to trial run this, is you can have the COVID-19 vaccine cost money, but we could come up with a reasonable price to where it could be mandatory but very affordable. Because I don't think they would cost that much to make. The question is, it costs a lot to develop. So the question is, the company needs to make enough money to recompensate for the fact that they put all that money into developing it, because no doubt they probably should be rewarded for developing this vaccine. But the thing is if it was up to the company, the price in which they would put it would cost more than it should. No doubt, correct?
Yeah.
I don't want to completely deprive them of that money that they have to make to get back what they put into it, and then the profit that they're probably somewhat entitled to, or at least I believe so with my belief system.
Yeah.
But that being said, it should be ceilinged and negotiated by the government so everybody can afford it. Obviously, I have no faith that Trump's administration would ever enact something like that, and I don't really have any faith that Biden's administration would either, to be completely honest.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't think he likes that sort of stuff, honestly. Like, he might act like he's, like, at the end of the day, corporate Democrats still, like, don't provide that much help.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just kind of how it is. I mean, maybe, but at the end of the day, I can't really take anything Joe Biden says seriously, because I don't think he's actually the one calling the shots, and I don't think he cares too much about what he says. I think he just kind of talks.
Yeah.
And be it as, I don't know. I'd just like to see them, like, trial a price ceiling system with the vaccine. That way everybody could get it. It could be paid for, but everybody would be paying a reasonable price for it. I don't think this is a crazy thing to ask for, and I know a lot of people would probably be thinking that's not enough. It should be free or provided.
I'm on the free side.
Yeah, but I mean, my only problem with it being free is if the government made it free, I feel like a lot of the drug companies that spend a lot of money developing these sorts of things would feel less incentive to develop something like this next time this becomes an issue.
I could care less about the feelings of the drug companies.
Yes, but at the end of the day, the private drug company, as much as I hate them, because I really don't like them, their developments are more efficient than government drug development, which is why we use them.
Yeah.
And the only reason they're more efficient is because they're profit incentive. And you're already pissing them off by, like, saying they can only make X amount of profit, but taking that profit away entirely, you're in danger of making it so they won't do that thing that helps us, which is develop a new drug next time. And it's very easy to say, fuck the drug companies, because I completely agree with you. They, like every company, they basically work like a machine that mindlessly seeks out money, and they don't care about anything else.
Yeah.
It's just like a program that goes out for money. And that's like a pretty gross thing. But that being said, it's not like that thing is not providing us anything. That thing is providing us new drugs and new cures and vaccines and stuff like that. And there's debate on whether or not you could make the government, like, do better than a private company, but I'm honestly thinking that that's not the case. And I know some people who would be to the right of me on this and saying that if you put a price ceiling in, that's already doing too much because you're stealing. Like, there's some people who think that stealing that incentive away where they get to put the price enough is enough to discourage them from making a cure. I don't think that's true. I think if you give them any sort of thing, any sort of profit margin, they'll be happy to do it again, even if they would have rather had, like, more profit to where they put it to where they want. I think as long as you keep any sort of profit there, that incentive isn't going to be completely dead. But some people disagree with me on that. But I do think that if you make it completely free, you are in danger of killing that incentive.
Yeah.
In a perfect world, I'd like to make it free, but I just don't think that's how things work.
We fought for
right now.
years for free flu vaccines. We were able to negotiate with insurance companies where it cost the government $1.6 billion for this last flu. I just looked it up.
I mean, maybe we
which
get
is
taxes
not a
to
crazy
pay for
amount of
this,
money,
I guess. But
economic value-wise, it's probably going to be exponentially more expensive.
So the issue is, even if we get the government to pay for this through taxes and it comes in, there's always the possibility of the government getting ripped off by the insurance company, or not the insurance company, the drug company. So, like, think about it like this: like, I get what you're saying. Like, the drug company would still get paid, but they get paid by the government for taxes. so poorer people don't have to pay into it, but obviously the drug company is still getting paid for the development because of taxes. But what I worry is if you do that instead of just a price ceiling, that when it's all said and done, the people like have no control over how much the government is paying of the taxes for the drug companies, and the drug companies could still easily rip off our government. And some of the people in our government are actually incentivized to let the drug companies rip off the government, which is why I think a price ceiling would, like, I feel like even if you did the tax thing, a price ceiling would still be necessary. Like, the price of each drug should still needs to be established regardless of.
I think the price ceiling alone is decreases decreases their incentive of creating these breakthrough drugs.
I mean, probably
more than just having it free and the government paying you, because you probably could hike up the price a little bit, and I'm not opposed to them.
Yeah, I mean, you could
getting what they earned, but
I'm just worried that our government's going to get like ripped off then, and that i.e. the taxpayers are going to get ripped off. Because you got to remember, the people making the negotiations with the drug companies aren't even the people whose money is getting taken by them. They're playing with other people's money.
Well, yeah, but I mean.
And then you could argue that that the majority of the money that they're playing with is rich people's money, but I think people often underestimate how much of that money belongs to the middle classes too.
No, and I'd rather have, like, say, like a Dr. Fauci or something like that, some expert negotiate a price, than the president or Senate.
Well, but that's the thing. Even with the price ceiling thing, it doesn't have to be the president. It could be a board assembled with people like Dr. Fauci.
Yeah.
I actually think if you have taxes, like if you have taxes pay for it, and like the other sort of way, and you make it free, I think you're a lot more in danger of it being left up to senators, in that opinion, or in that option. I mean, either way, there's a way that we could get a solution that basically takes the best ways out of both of what we want, and maybe that would be the optimal thing. Like, at the end of the day, we're essentially theory crafting here.
Yeah.
And I would not be opposed to that either, but I would like there to be a conversation between people who have absolutely no incentive to the drug companies, and I don't trust the politicians because a lot of them are in their pockets, to negotiate how much it's actually worth, and then we can figure out whether or not that's left up to individuals to pay for, or whether or not that's left up to taxes. But either way, I think there needs to be like a negotiation to figure out how much this is actually worth, and not just go up to the drug company and say, all right, how much, and the drug company be like, X amount. I don't really like that anymore. And I know that comes really weird, or that might sound really weird from a guy who defends like free markets, but I think when it comes to healthcare, that's probably the only way to make things correct, or at least in my opinion, the best way.
Yeah.
I think it really should be like that, because there's a lot of healthcare that's paid for by the government and taxes in other countries where they don't do that step, and the healthcare systems are have long-term unsustainability that they don't know how they're going to fix yet, partially because those price issues haven't been dealt with. Do you get what I'm saying?
Mm-mm.
Meaning that the programs cost more than taxes are paying in, and part of why it costs more than taxes are paying in is because the drug companies and various other medical companies are still allowed to charge the government what they think it costs, instead of there being like some sort of negotiation process being gone through.
Okay, yeah, I understand what you're saying.
And obviously, I don't even know what countries do what, but I'm pretty sure there's no sort of negotiation process in a lot of European healthcare systems that a lot of people think of as free healthcare. And of course, in areas like, I'm pretty sure Taiwan has like the hybrid system we're talking about, where a lot of it is paid for by taxes, but there's still a negotiation process. Japan is left up to people pay for their own, but there's just a negotiation process.
Mm-hmm.
So, unfortunately, whenever I bring up Japanese healthcare, the first argument I'm met with is, Japan has a different culture than the United States, as if that one point completely obliterates my argument, which I think is ridiculous. But even though it's a valid factor, but like, I don't think just saying different cultures completely takes my like inquiry about their system like off the table. I think it's ridiculous to say that.
I wonder. big of a factor it is.
Well, I would even argue that different healthcare system. So obviously there are some things about.
I think. Sorry.
Yeah,
just
you
one
can
more
go.
thing.
You
I
can
think
go.
their culture had a lot to do with how well they handled coronavirus.
Well, yeah, they already had no problems with wearing masks.
Yeah.
People did it all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, anything else said? I'm sorry, I don't want to
No.
launch into another rant here.
You can go.
I just wanted to say that with some of the culture around Japan's like healthcare and how they handle healthcare, I think a lot of it has to do because of the healthcare system. Like people in America don't necessarily like going to the doctor all the time, and because of that, we don't have very good preventative care. So problems get to like a breaking point where they cost more to deal with. In Japan, people go to the doctor a lot,
Yeah.
and it ends up costing them less because they catch things early.
Yeah.
And when you talk about changing the healthcare system to something that's more affordable, a lot of Republicans get really upset and they'll be like, people will go to the doctor all the time for reasons they don't need to. But that's the thing, if you did something like Japan, they're still paying for that, but they feel more like they can afford to go to the doctor all the time, and they still get to pay for it themselves.
Yeah.
But it's just way cheaper because price ceilings have been negotiated. And that's not to say they have no problems. They have problems specifically with I think administration in hospitals takes the large amount of the weight in Japan because they still operate in a competitive market. But since the hospitals were required to be nonprofit, it does make it very stressful for healthcare administrators over there, and sometimes they run into people not wanting to go into that field. But that being said, people still become doctors over there because of the culture. And a lot of people worry that since the American culture is about making money, if we did the change, that people wouldn't want to become doctors in America the same way that they continue to become doctors in Japan. But
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think we've exhausted that topic. Anything else you want to launch into?
Do you think there's going to be any change soon with administratively? Like, do you think they're going to take any action? Or you think a lot of people are saying they're just surrendering to the virus and just saying, hey, it's going to be part of our lives for a while and you're just going to have to deal with it.
I mean, honestly, even if they do things like correctly, I feel like that last thing you said is pretty inevitable. That the virus is going to, at the end of the day, we just kind of have to accept it and let it run its course, even if it takes a ridiculous amount of time. That being said, I'd like to see some actions done
just
to
save some lives, because I do think the death rate is going to increase dramatically.
I think that deaths will continue to go up. I'm skeptical on whether the death rate is going to skyrocket. I think the infection rate will continue to skyrocket, but that's expected as we test more.
Mm-hmm.
The real question is...
Well, then again, it's not expected because we test more, because our positive rate is increasing.
I mean, yeah, but you...
Almost 1/3 of all people that got a test yesterday were positive.
Yeah, but those people probably had it for a while. The infection rate isn't just jumping up now. That if we were testing everybody from the get-go, no doubt the infection rate would have been higher right now. So our infection rate was underestimated.
Yeah,
before.
Sorry, that number I pulled is for Florida, not the country, because that
fine.
doesn't make sense.
I gotcha. Yeah. I mean, so like the infection rate, as we test more, is just going back to where it actually is, because the infection rate number we had for a while is like super below what it should be. Like it was inaccurate. It was an underestimate. You know?
Yeah, but I'm totally against the premise of more tests mean more cases, which is true, but also like
I'm not saying we shouldn't
you got to look
test.
at other factors as to why cases are increasing at the rate they are.
I'm not taking the Trump stance where he's like, we got to slow down testing for good optics. Yeah. Obviously, that's stupid. He's been saying some real dumb shit lately.
Yeah.
It's not making me happy.
Yeah.
And we can use that to transition to that other topic I want to talk about. But let's finish up this here with, like, you're asking if anything's going to change. I think there's only two ways things are really going to change. One, if administrations change and it goes to Biden, we're going to see a drastically different approach to this, simply because I think if Trump loses, it will mostly be because of coronavirus. So Biden's going to have to set, even if it's not much better, he's going to at least create the illusion of trying something different from Trump. Otherwise, he's going to have absolutely bad. He's going to have bad approval ratings going into his presidency if he doesn't do that.
He's gonna have an entirely different situation because we could have a vaccine by the time he's inaugurated.
I know, that's why it almost is like unfair to compare the two situations in my opinion. But let's just assume for a moment we don't have a vaccine and we're being a little bit more pessimistic and we're like 6 months out.
Yeah.
He's still, and I'm not saying his policies wouldn't have different outcomes because most likely they would. But theoretically, even if his policies had the exact same outcomes of Trump's, he would at least change the way his policies look, because it's good to distance his policies from Trump in handling coronavirus. Because like I said, if Trump loses, I think it's safe to pin a large portion of his loss on coronavirus. Because I really think that a Trump landslide would have been a huge possibility if coronavirus never happened.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
And that's hard to imagine as even a faint possibility now.
Yeah.
So I don't know, anything else to add about that? Do you think there'd be any differences that would occur?
Oh, any differences?
Well, not just administration, but you're talking about whether or not we're going to surrender to coronavirus, or if we're going to actually do something about it. I think that's the only thing that would change it.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that actually there could be one other thing. Trump being super afraid he's going to lose and taking a 180 stance on a lot of things, but I think that's way less unlikely.
And it's going to be too late for anything to change.
Unlikely. Yeah, way more unlikely. You're right. It wouldn't do much.
No.
It'd be like lip service if he did that. But sometimes that stuff works, so who knows? He's just been making bad moves lately, and I mean, I don't know, a lot of people think all the good moves Trump did were up to luck. I think Trump did actually have, I don't think he strategizes, but I think he did have pretty good political instincts for a while, but I think he was not prepared for a situation like that, so his instincts don't work right now, and he's making a lot of really crap decisions, and he's pandering to the lowest common denominator, which is where the whole flag burning stuff of him saying, like, people should go to jail for at least a year. Yeah. He's pandering to a hyper-nationalistic crowd because he knows that that's what makes up his base. And before, even though he always pandered to that base, it wasn't 100% made up of his, like, vote. That wasn't completely... That didn't make up 100% of the people voting for him before. And I think as polls change, it makes up a larger percentage of the people voting for him now. So now he's pandering heavier to that, I guess you could say, far-right base.
Yeah.
And I don't like how it reflects in his rhetoric. I mean, I shouldn't have to say why flag burning needs to be legal. Like, it's pretty fucking obvious.
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious.
Yeah. You know my stance on that.
Yeah. I mean, we could both say our stances on that, but, like, and anybody who's been listening to our opinions for any amount of time can probably see how that shapes up.
Yeah. It doesn't give you any sort of good look politically, or
it definitely does. It only to that specific crowd.
Only to that, like,
And I mean, I always get really skeptical when people call right-leaning and Republican politicians fascists or fascist adjacent, but it's hard not to look at that and think of it as anything else but fascist adjacent. And that's just a little worrisome. I really do think a lot of people who say that Trump won't concede power, I think they are mostly worried about nothing, because I think even if Trump doesn't want to concede power, I don't think he'd get away with it. I think it would, like, I think that would be challenged pretty hard by other people, and he would be forced to step down, and if it was an issue for like a day, it would go away. You get what I mean? But I'm just saying that whole worrisome thing about, I'm worried if Trump's going to step down, like, him saying stuff like that definitely makes those theories feel like they could carry more water, and that makes me nervous. And I think from an optics standpoint, he should stay away from that.
Yep, absolutely.
But he doesn't. He feeds into that freaking narrative, because that's honestly the dumbest part of his like style for the longest time. Like, remember that whole Trump 20, Trump 2024, Trump 2028
Yep.
ad, and it goes to Trump forever?
Mhm.
Like, a lot of people saying he was just trolling the libs. And that's entirely possible.
Oh yeah.
But that being said,
You still put it out there.
bad optics.
Yeah. Not.
And I'm all for him trolling his enemies, but like I'd rather him do the really funny like meme shit where he does like puts his face on Thanos and snaps his fingers and
Yeah.
has like his enemies disappear. Like that's at least like that can be played off as a joke a lot easier than something like that.
Yeah.
And I think like if he wants to just lol left wing destroyed, I mean whatever, but like I think his team should be more conscious about how that's done because it matters. It does matter how you use rhetoric.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think humor and trolling should have any place in politics? That's a good question. It's been used for a while.
I was gonna say.
Trump's nothing new. He's just a new form of it, capitalizing on meme culture.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because you had Jon Stewart and all of like Comedy Central shows.
Yeah.
Even that, you had like You Can't Lick Our Dick with Richard Nixon.
Yep.
Like comedy was always like a thing.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's sort of a laid back view.
Yeah.
I don't mind it.
I mean, I don't mind it either.
When you take it to the point where you're kind of pushing fascist ideals.
Yeah. I mean, it just sucks because, like, comedy intertwined with politics, there's a fine line between that and propaganda.
Yeah.
And there always will be.
Yep.
And I think that applies to all the examples I just brought up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, should we talk about Mr. Kanye?
Yeah, we can. One thing that I forget, before we bring up Kanye, did you hear about all the Oklahoma land being given back to native tribes? I haven't actually been able to watch a full synopsis.
Was it given back, or was it?
It was ruled to belong to native tribes.
Yeah, they just kept it. It wasn't like taken and then given back.
I mean, technically, didn't America like? It's like half of Oklahoma, though. It's like a large portion of Oklahoma.
I don't know.
I've yet to watch a full video synopsis on this. I've just seen like thumbnails about it, and from all the left-leaning content creators I watch, they from maybe they're just clickbaiting, but it really seems like they think it's a lot of land that's been given back, and that it's like pretty huge and unprecedented. I mean,
well, especially given the way the Supreme Court is set up. Yeah.
Well, the Supreme Court has actually been making fairly progressive calls despite Brett Kavanaugh's appointment and stuff like that.
He did vote. What did he vote for? I don't remember.
He's voted left on a few things, but obviously not everything. But he seems more like he's acting more like a centrist than more people would have assumed, which I think is pretty interesting. There was the whole.
So is Trump's other appointee.
Yeah, there was that. Yeah, there was that whole ruling recently about like that ruling recently about
There was the Louisiana abortion one.
Yeah, I'm referring to something with LGBT rights, because they tried to bring something to the Supreme Court about like trying to roll back protections on same-sex couples or trans couples being able to like adopt, but like the Supreme Court like threw it out.
Was it that, or was it workplace discrimination?
I imagine both those things were probably things.
Yeah, that was huge.
Yeah.
It was like not even close, wasn't it 7-2?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty sure that I'm pretty sure on workplace discrimination there was a vote on it.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure on the other thing it was an issue that they just threw out. Yeah, and like nobody even wanted to like
touch it.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, because it wouldn't even be like with like the workplace discrimination thing. That's like a breakthrough.
Yep.
With the other thing, that's a rollback.
Yep.
A rollback is a lot more controversial and aggressive than giving rights that aren't already there or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, that's been encouraging. They did that thing with Trump's tax returns recently too.
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, because Trump's been really against releasing his tax returns.
Oh well, of course. Yeah.
Or saying he'll release them when his audit's done, but the IRS said the audit doesn't need to be done. So
they're taking a long time on that audit though.
Yeah.
That audit's been happening like his entire presidency.
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder why they're taking so long on his audit.
Or why he's so adamant on keeping them a secret. Yeah, but
I mean, is there a reason why you'd want to wait for the audit to be done? I mean, maybe you can obviously you can release them while an audit's happening, but I'm wondering if there's actually a legitimate reason why you'd want to wait for an audit to be done.
yeah, I don't know.
Because I don't know enough about this to say whether or not he's pulling this out of his ass, or maybe there's a legitimate reason.
Yeah. Well, the whole Southern District of New York Attorney General wanted the tax returns and the Deutsche Bank records, Trump's records and Deutsche Bank, and the Supreme Court ruled recently that it has to be brought back down to lower courts, and then if the lower courts vote in favor of the Southern District of New York getting the tax returns, then the Attorney General would get them, and then eventually, probably not until Trump's out of office, though, then eventually House and Senate would get to look at them too.
Interesting. Anyways, want to talk about Kanye?
Yeah, I do want to talk about Kanye.
Alright, good old E.
Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously he's not going to become president.
I know, but
not
what?
This cycle. Maybe next
Part
cycle.
of me, right when I thought, because there was something out, like, he can't even get on the ballot in like 4 states.
Yeah,
Texas and New York.
He, missed the deadline.
He hasn't filled out any paperwork. He just said he's running over Twitter.
I wonder if he's even... I can't believe Elon Musk endorsed him, first of all.
Yeah.
I know, it's all a joke for Elon. Elon's, like, the biggest memer ever. I think Kanye's somewhat serious.
Do you think it's...
It's hard to say with that.
An RNC?
It's hard
Kanye.
to say with Kanye. It's really hard to say with Kanye. I'm 100% confident Elon Musk is just memeing, but I have no idea what's going through Kanye's head. Literally none.
Yeah. I'm pulling a Sid Peck here. Part of me thinks it's a little agreement, saying he's separating himself from Trump. Hops in the race now. Well, Joe Biden has momentum.
You think it's going to try to steal votes away from?
That's the only explanation I have.
Yeah, really? I mean,
even besides his big ego.
So it's not entirely you're not wrong that could be a possibility. I'm not going to rule it out because like collusion and cooperation definitely happens, which is why you're calling it pulling Sid Peck, because I've said similar things about the way Democrats have interacted in the race. But the thing is there's more evidence, in my opinion, to show that the Democrats in the primary were interacting in a way to try to stop Bernie because it's in their interest more than I see any evidence of. The only evidence we have is Trump and Kanye are buddies. That's literally it.
Or we're 3 months away from an election.
I suppose. I mean, there's more assumptions being made here.
4 months away.
But it's entirely possible. Kyle Clancy doesn't seem to think that's a possibility. He thinks it's just because Kanye is Kanye, and I think that's, even though what you're saying is possible, I think it's more likely that this is either a publicity stunt for Kanye that he's not taking too seriously in order to get people to pay attention to him again.
Mm-hmm.
B, he plans on running in the future, and he doesn't expect to win this time, but he wants to have a go at it and then try again in a future year. But honestly, I think in the case of Kanye, that's actually a bad move. I think even though most politicians should do stuff like that, like we see Andrew Yang running in this election, and he might have a better shot at it later on.
Oh, yeah.
Same thing with like Cory Booker and other presidential candidates that I really think are going to try again and not go away. I think if you're like Kanye, though, an outsider like that, I think you have one shot. I think that's just how it works.
Yeah.
I don't think Kanye can keep throwing his hat in the ring and do better and better like the average politician. I think you have one shot if you're Kanye. So I think it's not a very good move, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So I think it's one of those things. Either it's publicity stunt, or he thinks it'll make it more likely for him to do president next time. I mean, it's possible he's doing it as a favor to Trump. Definitely is. Mm-hmm. But even if he is, I guarantee you that's not the primary reason. Might be an auxiliary reason.
Yeah.
Like, hey, this gives me a lot of attention and it helps out my buddy Trump.
Yeah.
But I think he's doing it for the attention. And if he seriously ran, who would be his running mate? Do you think Elon would talk himself into being the running mate?
Talk himself.
Well, no, I mean, okay, that's...
Yeah, he probably would talk himself into it.
Like
Because that's who Elon is.
Well, you go up to Kanye and be like, hey, Kanye,
Yeah.
I can be your running mate. And I feel like Kanye would be like, shit, man, yeah, you're on board. Like, I feel like Kanye would be super, like, down to have Elon be on his ticket. I mean, if I was running for president, I had no one better, and I was an outsider, I'd pick Elon. I wouldn't want Kanye on my ticket, but Kanye is the ticket, so...
Yeah. It just makes me mad. That's all.
I mean, there's no, I don't know,
That anyone, well, not anyone, but that people like Kanye can just jump into a race to be the most powerful person in the world.
Yeah, but then that goes back to the discussion, is the president actually the most powerful person in the world?
Yeah. I think when you have the most powerful military...
Yeah, but are they really the ones who are
I think we're the most
shots?
Influential. Are they the ones calling the shots? Yeah, that's a good point, but...
Like, I'm skeptical on whether what we see as our government is actually the government. Like, obviously the Senate and the Congress carries a lot of power, and same with the Supreme Court. Yeah. When it comes to the executive branch, I wonder how much of that is just a show.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all about money and politics, man.
Money and politics.
To see it.
The best topic.
What else we got? Anything else?
I don't know. Joe Biden's brain melted some more.
That's alright. I'm just like praying that he makes.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you seem like you'd vote for a glass of water over Trump at this point.
Yeah. Why would I vote for Trump? He's against all of my ideals, and I hate him as a human being.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty not great lately.
Lately, yeah. Even before he was president.
Yeah, he was
a shit human being.
I mean, yeah. Isn't that a prerequisite for being president?
Huh?
Isn't that the prerequisite for being president?
Yeah, true. There was a good campaign ad. They turned the creepy card back on Trump. And there was this...
Yeah, he has done some creepy things, too.
Oh, yeah. There was this interview where he was on, I don't know what talk show it was. But he was on...
Was he talking about his daughter?
With Ivanka.
Yeah, that's it.
And they first asked the question to Ivanka, what do you think you and your father have most in common? She answered. Then they asked Donald. Donald says sex.
What?
Yeah.
Why? What does that even mean?
I don't know.
What?
Sexual life, sexual activity.
Okay, yeah.
It's kind of gross.
It's pretty weird, yeah, I don't...
And then he was on another talk show where he said if Ivanka wasn't his daughter, they'd be dating.
Okay, yeah, everybody's heard that line.
Yeah, that one's... He's gross, dude.
I mean, yeah.
And if you're gonna vote for him, like, Jesus Christ.
I don't know what I'm doing yet.
I'm not bad.
Yeah, no, I'm being real with you. I don't know what I'm doing yet. I'm gonna be honest, bro. I'm this close to not voting. I'm this fucking close to not voting. I'm getting pretty pissed off about this. Because, hey, I just want to... something for the viewers to keep in mind. I've drifted farther left since I've started this podcast. Fun fact. I don't know if anybody can pick up on that. But, no, you're not winning, bro. Okay, really, I was defending Bernie Sanders from the get-go here.
I know you are.
But, so I've always been a wild card.
Sid, I think you're more left-leaning than you think you are.
Probably. The political compass definitely woke me up a little bit.
Yeah.
But prior to that, I've been talking to, I guess you could say, intelligent lefty women lately, and it has been making me realize more about my views.
Yeah.
So.
Love to see it. Just kidding.
Hate to see it.
Why?
No, I'm just joking. I'm just memeing.
All right. Well, should we wrap her up?
Yeah. I think we had a good discussion here.
Yeah. What episode are we even on?
Oh my God, I have no idea, bro.
19?
19? I think it's 19. Yeah, it has to be 19.
Well, thanks for listening to episode 19 of Two Commoners
This
Podcast.
is the first episode where
Episode
we didn't
20
say
next
the.
week.
Is this the first episode where
Yeah, we didn't say it.
Who are we
Shit.
having on?
Huh?
Who are we having on?
Well, it's John.
Okay, I have somebody who wants to come on.
Oh,
but
okay.
I'll talk to you about that off air.
All right.
We'll see
Sounds
what happens
good.
with that.
Well, thanks for listening, guys. Listen on Spotify, Anchor, and all your favorite podcasting platforms.
Yeet.